How do you feel about the quality of the Back to the Future movies? Go ahead.
Well, I will say it is kind of like a Star Wars type of thing where you see the original Star Wars, and if you grew up in the 80s, obviously you saw, Episode 4 thinking, hey, what's Episode 1 through 3? So all these years go by and you think like, hey, what's Episode 1 going to be like? So you have this idea in your head, and if it comes out any way that's not near what you thought of, it's like, hey, this sucks. But when everyone saw Back to the Future, they did the whole to be continued, and it's like, well, what are they going to do with Back to the Future? And at the time, I thought it was like really cool. But then when they pulled like the to be concluded thing, it was just kind of like, what is this? But they had the preview for part 3 because they filmed it simultaneously, so they had the preview for 3 at the end of part 2. And just the Western angle was just kind of like, what is this? Not to go against Westerns, because there certainly are good Westerns that are classics, but I felt it was pretty lazy for Back to the Future, because I mean, the first one is a 5-star movie. I mean, it is memorable down to the core. From I'm afraid you guys are just too darn loud to, Marty McFly jamming at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. I mean, when he is dancing, or when he is rocking, when he's doing his whole Johnny Be Good, and he's like tapping and like doing the windmills and shit, like that is gold. That is Back to the Future gold, and the band's just like looking at him and stuff, and he's just...
Your kids are gonna love it.
Yeah. I mean...
that sound you were looking for?
Well, this is it. I mean, you've got the George McFly. George McFly's... Well, that was another thing, too, is because Crispin Glover, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but when the sequel was coming around, they get the mom, they get Michael J. Fox, they get Christopher Lloyd, they get the main compartments together. They didn't get Crispin Glover because he wanted too much money for whatever reason. So what they did instead was they made the plot line where, George McFly was like hanging upside down because of a golf accident. But they took another actor who wasn't Crispin Glover, made him up to look like he'd be George McFly, and because he was upside down, you couldn't tell that it wasn't Crispin Glover. Because when I saw it when I was a kid, it was just like, is this George McFly or is it not George McFly? Because he doesn't have very many lines. It was just kind of a weird thing, but Crispin Glover actually sued them because they took his likeness. Yeah, and I mean, that was a weird kind of thing, but Back to the Future 2 definitely does not add up to the first one. But it's unique.
Is it a decline? Like, is the first one the best and the third one the worst?
Definitely.
Okay. I think that's the case. Though the second one, I think you could argue that the third one's... I don't know.
Well, they all have merit.
Yeah, they definitely all good, but I feel like it's kind of it is a steady decline. Though there's things I love about each of them. Third one, they play on TV all the time, more than they even play the first one, I think.
Yeah, I think him using the third one is kind of like an accumulation of all of the gags. So, it's him waking up, like, is that you, Mom, blah, blah, blah. The whole, like, slacker thing, the principal's the sheriff. That's kind of cool. But at the same time, it's like, oh, these people never left Hill Valley, they just came to this country from Ireland or whatever, and that was it. But I definitely liked,
the Clint Eastwood thing?
Yeah, because that was set up in part 2.
Yeah.
And came to be, in the third one, how he took the identity of Clint Eastwood. I thought that was cool.
Yep. That was very cool.
ZZ Top slightly out of place there, I'd say.
My prediction is that the prediction that was made in Back to the Future 2 about the Cubs winning the World Series in 2015, I believe, will come true. That's my
prerogative.
I hope you're right.
Was it 2015? Because wasn't that...
I think it's 2015, not 2010. I thought it was 2010.
Well, I thought this was already like a news thing before because they were playing Florida in the World Series in Back to the Future 2, and I thought that was like in the early 2000s already with that.
No, they said Back to the Future 2 is, I'm almost positive it's set in 2015.
No, it's set in 2015, but wasn't the news from like a different date then? Where like, because that guy was just like, oh, if I had some money, I'd go back and bet on the Cubbies. And I think it was like at a different date. Because
I think it was before it.
I don't think it because they.
I think they were referencing it in the past.
Yeah, he went
future.
to Hill Valley in 2015, but I don't think the World Series where the Cubs beat Florida or whatever was in 2015. I think it was like 2006 or something.
No, because it says. I'm pretty sure that sign says 2015.
Yeah, but
the
wasn't-
same thing, and it says the Cubs won.
Yeah, but wasn't that like a flashback type of thing though?
No,
Where was
he's on
it
the
like?
street. It said it on one of the signs. It was right before the Jaws shark came and freaked him out with the 3D thing.
Because I do remember
It's that same scene.
because a few years ago, the Cubs did wind up in playoffs
With Florida, yeah.
and they referenced Back to the Future, like,
They
oh,
did.
Yeah,
Back
just
to the
because
Future,
the
you know.
teams were the same though, and I don't think it's because of the.
Yeah, well, that's something to look into because I haven't seen Back to the Future.
I don't
in a while.
know. I don't necessarily think they'll be playing Florida, but I think 2015 is the year of the Cubs.